Eloise Paris wasn't just any fashion store, it was a luxury boutique meant only for the rich and famous. The kind of place where price tags didn't matter, and only those with real status were treated with respect. The store was known for its exclusive designs, expensive fabrics, and VIP treatment. At the heart of this boutique was Helena, the manager. She wasn't just in charge, she was the gatekeeper. Tall, stylish, and always dressed in high-end designer outfits, she believed her job was to protect the boutique's image. In her mind, not everyone deserved to shop here. Helena had a simple rule: rich, important people were treated like royalty, greeted with warm smiles, glasses of champagne, and personal shopping assistants. But if someone looked ordinary or out of place, they were given cold looks and subtle hints to leave. That's why, when Taylor Swift walked in that afternoon, dressed in a hoodie, jeans, and a cap, Helena's eyes immediately narrowed in suspicion. To her, Taylor didn't look like she belonged. She wasn't carrying a designer handbag, she wasn't wearing high heels, and she didn't have the usual look of the boutique's wealthy customers. Helena didn't recognize her, she just saw another casually dressed woman who was probably a tourist or a fan trying to sneak a peek at the expensive dresses. From behind the counter, Helena watched closely, expecting Taylor to pull out her phone and take pictures, something the boutique strictly forbade. But Taylor didn't do any of that. She simply walked through the store calmly and confidently, running her fingers over the soft fabrics of the luxury dresses. She wasn't rushing, she wasn't nervous, she was just looking. Yet, in Helena's mind, this woman was wasting time. VIP customers sat on plush leather couches, sipping their drinks, whispering about the stranger in the store. The boutique had a very clear social order, and Taylor, dressed in such a simple outfit, was at the bottom of it. Helena couldn't allow this. This boutique was for elite customers only. And if Taylor wasn't one of them, then Helena would make sure she understood she wasn't welcome. Helena took a deep breath, straightened her posture, and walked toward Taylor Swift with a polite but clearly forced smile. It was the kind of smile that looked friendly at first but carried a hidden message, one of judgment and disapproval. She had seen women like this before, casual, clueless, and completely out of place in a store like Eloise Paris. She stopped just a few feet away from Taylor, scanning her outfit one last time before speaking. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice smooth but cold. Taylor turned around, adjusting the cap on her head. Her blue eyes met Helena's, and she offered a polite but relaxed smile. "Oh, I'm just looking, thank you," she replied. Helena's lips pressed into a thin line. Just looking. That was exactly what she had suspected. Tourists and window shoppers had no place here. Every item in this boutique was hand-selected from top designers, with price tags that could buy a small car. People who were just looking rarely had the money to buy. Helena took a slow step forward, lowering her voice slightly so only Taylor could hear. "Our store caters to exclusive clients," she said smoothly. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" The words were coded in fake politeness, but the message was clear: you don't belong here. Taylor's smile didn't waver. She had dealt with situations like this before, people assuming she was a nobody because she didn't dress the part. She had no interest in proving herself to anyone, especially not to a boutique manager who clearly judged people based on appearances. "Oh, I think I am," she said simply, her voice calm. She turned away from Helena and continued browsing, her fingers gliding over the soft silk of a deep red designer dress. Helena, now slightly irritated, stepped closer, blocking Taylor's path ever so subtly. Taylor reached for another dress, a stunning black silk gown, its elegant stitching catching the light just right. As she admired the fabric, Helena swiftly moved in front of her, placing a perfectly manicured hand on the rack, as if physically preventing her from looking further. "That's a very special piece," Helena said smoothly. "Perhaps I could suggest something more appropriate for your style?" The air in the boutique grew tense. The few VIP clients lounging on the leather couches had already taken notice of the exchange. One woman whispered to her friend, who let her in. Another scoffed, "She looks like a lost fan, not a real customer." Taylor heard the whispers, but she remained calm. She had spent years in the public eye, learning to ignore judgmental looks and dismissive attitudes. But there was one thing she never ignored: disrespect. She turned to Helena, her gaze steady. "Are you saying I can't afford this?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Helena, for the first time, hesitated for half a second. But then, with a soft chuckle, she composed herself. "Oh, not at all," she said, her tone dripping with fake kindness. "I'm simply suggesting that we have a more affordable store nearby. It might be easier to find something fitting." The insult was crystal clear. A hush fell over the boutique. Even the sales associates behind the counter stole nervous glances at each other. Helena, still believing she was in control, waved over one of her employees. A young woman named Clara, who had been standing behind the register, stepped forward hesitantly. "Clara, could you assist this customer?" Helena said smoothly. "Make sure she finds what she's looking for." Clara hesitated. She had worked here long enough to know exactly what was happening. This wasn't customer service, this was a calculated move. Helena wanted Taylor out of the store. She wasn't offering help, she was applying pressure, making sure Taylor felt unwelcome enough to leave. But Taylor didn't budge. She glanced at Clara, then back at Helena, a small smirk forming on her lips. "Do all your VIP customers get treated this way?" she asked, her voice casual but firm. The question landed like a slap in the face. The whispers from the VIP clients stopped instantly. Helena tilted her head slightly, her smirk returning. "Oh," she said smoothly, "only the right ones." Now, the humiliation was public and undeniable. The sales associates behind the counter shifted uncomfortably, suddenly realizing that Helena had gone too far. The VIP customers, once amused, now seemed uncertain. Some of them avoided eye contact, while others simply watched in silence, waiting to see what would happen next. Taylor took a slow breath. She had let the manager play her little game long enough. She could have ended this at any time, one word, one introduction, and Helena's entire world would come crashing down. But she wasn't done yet. She wanted to see just how far Helena would go before realizing the mistake of a lifetime. And she wouldn't have to wait long. Because, in just a few moments, the boutique doors would open again. And the last person Helena expected would walk in. The soft chime of the boutique doors rang through the air, but this time, the sound felt different. It wasn't just another customer stepping in. A tall, commanding figure entered, his presence shifting the energy of the entire store in an instant. His broad shoulders, effortless confidence, and unmistakable aura made it impossible to ignore him. It was Travis Kelce. The air inside Eloise Paris seemed to tighten, as if the very walls of the boutique recognized the power shift happening within them. The VIP clients, who had been watching Taylor with quiet amusement moments ago, now sat frozen in their seats. Some gasped, their whispered gossip dying in their throats as their eyes widened in disbelief. The sales associates at the counter exchanged nervous glances, as if they had just witnessed the impossible unfold before them. Helena, standing stiffly near Taylor, felt her entire body tense. Travis Kelce, Super Bowl champion, NFL icon, and one of the most famous athletes in the world, had just walked into her boutique. And he wasn't looking around, browsing, or greeting anyone else. He was walking straight toward Taylor Swift. Without hesitation, Travis closed the distance between them. His warm brown eyes locked onto hers, and in one smooth motion, he wrapped her in a familiar, protective hug, the kind of embrace shared between two people who had weathered storms together. "Hey, Tay," he murmured, his voice filled with ease, as if this moment was just another day in their world. Taylor smiled softly, hugging him back, as if the entire spectacle surrounding them was nothing more than an afterthought. The silence in the boutique was absolute. VIP clients who had seconds ago judged Taylor for her casual outfit now sat in stunned silence, struggling to process what they had just witnessed. The woman they had dismissed, the woman Helena had belittled, was Taylor Swift, the biggest pop star in the world. Helena's stomach dropped. Her breath hitched as the realization hit her like a tidal wave. She had just humiliated Taylor Swift. She had treated Taylor Swift, a billionaire, a global icon, a woman who could buy this entire boutique without thinking twice, like an unwanted outsider. Panic crept into her bones. Her mind raced for a way to fix this, to undo the damage, to salvage what little dignity she had left. But before she could open her mouth, Travis turned to her. His expression was unreadable, but his presence alone felt like a quiet storm waiting to erupt. "I hope you treated her well." His words weren't loud, but they landed like a sledgehammer. The entire boutique held its breath. The sales associates looked away, suddenly finding interest in adjusting the neatly folded scarves at the counter. The VIP clients glanced at each other, waiting to see how Helena would respond. Helena stammered, her mouth opening and closing, trying desperately to recover. Of course, I just..." She felt her face burn as the weight of every single person's gaze pressed down on her. Taylor raised an eyebrow, unimpressed, her arms crossed as she watched Helena flounder. The very foundation of Helena's carefully constructed world was cracking beneath her feet. Everything she had built, her authority, her control, her reputation, was falling apart in real time. And worst of all, there was no way to fix it now. She had already lost. A heavy silence settled over the boutique, thick with tension. Helena stood frozen, her carefully curated confidence crumbling under the weight of her mistake. Every second that passed felt like an eternity, and all she could do was stare at Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, unable to undo the damage she had done. Then, Taylor spoke. Her voice was calm, controlled, but razor-sharp. Oh yes, Helena was unforgettable. The words landed harder than any insult could have. There was no anger in Taylor's tone, just a quiet certainty that made the humiliation sink even deeper. A few VIP clients, who had once been watching the scene unfold with mild amusement, now began to murmur amongst themselves. "Can you believe this?" one whispered. "If they treat Taylor Swift like this, imagine how they treat the rest of us." The atmosphere in the boutique shifted completely. Moments ago, Helena had been the one in control. But now, she felt small, powerless, and completely exposed. Then, Travis stepped forward, effortlessly taking control of the room. His towering frame cast a shadow over Helena as he glanced at the expensive dress Taylor had been holding. He picked it up, ran his fingers over the fine silk fabric, and then turned to Taylor. "Do you like it?" he asked, his voice smooth and steady. Taylor glanced at the dress, shrugging slightly. "It's nice, I guess." That was all Travis needed to hear. Without another word, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his card. The boutique fell into stunned silence as he handed it to the nearest sales associate. "I'll take it," he said casually. Helena's breath hitched, her body stiffening as the realization set in. Travis Kelce had just spent thousands of dollars without a second thought. But it was what he did next that left the entire boutique gasping. As the sales associate carefully took the dress to ring it up, Travis stopped her with a wave of his hand. He looked at her, then at Helena, then at the stunned VIP clients who were still grappling with the weight of what had just happened. Then, in a calm, deliberate voice, he said, "Wrap it up for charity. I don't think we'll be shopping here." The effect was instant. A ripple of gasps filled the boutique. Helena's face drained of color. The VIP clients shifted uncomfortably, their expressions morphing from curiosity to disgust. One woman, an elegantly dressed socialite, suddenly stood up, grabbing her expensive handbag with an air of indignation. "I don't shop at places that mistreat people," she said loudly. Then, without another word, she turned on her heel and walked out. Helena's stomach dropped. Before she could even process that, another client, this one holding an overpriced handbag, returned it to the counter. "Me neither," she muttered before storming toward the exit. The domino effect had begun. One by one, VIP customers started leaving, their once-idle whispers turning into harsh criticisms of the store's treatment of Taylor. If this happened to her, it could happen to any of us. What kind of business runs on humiliating its customers? Helena tried to intervene, to stop the mass exodus, but her words failed her. And then, the final blow came. Her phone vibrated violently in her pocket. With shaky hands, she pulled it out, glancing at the screen. A single message from the boutique owner flashed across the display. "We have a serious problem. Call me immediately." Her fingers trembled as she realized what this meant. This wasn't just a small misunderstanding anymore. This wasn't something she could smooth over with an apology. This was public, this was viral, and this was career-ending. Then, one last betrayal sealed her fate. Clara, the young sales assistant, who had silently endured Helena's arrogant ways for too long, took a deep breath. Without making a scene, she unclipped her boutique name tag, stared at it for a moment, and then placed it gently on the counter. Helena's head snapped toward her, panic flashing in her eyes. "Clara," she began, her voice faltering. But Clara didn't even look at her. Instead, she turned to Taylor Swift, her expression calm and composed. "May I walk you out?" she asked politely. Taylor smiled, a small, knowing smile that held more power than any words ever could. She nodded. And just like that, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce walked out of the boutique, leaving Helena behind, standing in the ruins of her own arrogance. As Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, and Clara stepped out of Eloise Paris, the boutique doors shut behind them with a quiet finality. But inside, chaos had already begun. Helena stood frozen, watching helplessly as the boutique's most valuable clients walked out, some in outrage, others in disgust. The judgmental whispers that had once been aimed at Taylor were now directed at Helena. The streets outside, however, were a completely different scene. The moment Taylor and Travis stepped outside, a wave of flashing cameras erupted from the sidewalks. Paparazzi had been waiting, and now they had their story. Camera shutters clicked in a rapid frenzy, microphones were shoved forward, and voices overlapped in an attempt to get a response. "Taylor. What happened in there? Travis, did they really refuse to serve her? Clara, were you working inside? Can you confirm the rumors?" But Taylor remained calm, simply adjusting her cap and giving a small, knowing smile. She didn't need to say a word. The world would know soon enough. With Travis beside her and Clara walking just a step behind, the trio disappeared into the city, leaving behind a storm that was only just beginning. The internet erupts. Hours later, Taylor sat comfortably in a quiet cafe, a warm cup of tea in her hands. Travis sat across from her, scrolling through his phone, looking amused. Clara, still a bit overwhelmed by the events of the day, sat nearby, nervously stirring her coffee. Then, Taylor's phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen and saw a text from a close friend. "The video of that manager humiliating you has 20 million views. She's been fired." Taylor's eyes flickered with amusement as she turned the screen toward Travis. "Well, that was fast," she said with a smirk. Travis chuckled, shaking his head. "Guess she learned a lesson today." Across the cafe, Clara's phone buzzed too. She hesitated before checking it, she already had a feeling what it was about. Sure enough, a text from one of her former co-workers appeared. "Helena got fired. The boutique's owner is panicking. Everyone's talking about it." We're getting calls non-stop from the press." Clara let out a deep breath, a mix of relief and disbelief washing over her. She had walked out of that boutique with nothing but her dignity. And yet, somehow, she had gained everything. Taylor took a sip of her tea before turning to Clara. "So, what's next for you?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. Clara hesitated. She had spent so long working under people like Helena, people who made her feel small, replaceable. But today had changed everything. She gave a nervous but hopeful smile. "I don't know, maybe something where I'm actually respected." Travis exchanged a glance with Taylor before nodding knowingly. "We know people who can help." Clara's eyes widened slightly, her lips parting as if to say something, but no words came. Because for the first time in a long time, she realized she wasn't just another nameless employee in the background. She had stood up for what was right. And people noticed. A soft montage of the events played out, Taylor's calm resilience, Travis standing by her side, Clara finding the courage to walk away from an unfair system, and the viral storm that followed. As the camera panned to Taylor looking out the window, her voice echoed with a final thought. "Some think power comes from money, but true power comes from respect." But the lesson would never be forgotten.